So talking about modalities of communication, communication can be defined as having two components, listening and speaking. Both of these are a give and take, a push and pull between one or more parties to build successful communication. So we'll go over communication that can occur within a single person, between two or more people, between a single person and a group, between different groups, between groups and institutions, and then between institutions themselves, as well as giving some examples along the way. Intrapersonal, meaning internal to the self. This is communication that occurs within a single person. So some examples of this can be meditation, concentration, personal mantras one may have, recitations if you're constantly repeating a grocery list you may have to yourself, or things you are trying to remind yourself of or remember. Self-up talk, self-down talk especially. All of these ruminating things that you're telling yourself in the middle of the night dark when you're trying to go to sleep, the things running through your head. The ways that you celebrate yourself, the ways that you give yourself a pep talk before doing other things as well. All of these are examples of intrapersonal communication, communication occurring within yourself or within others. Interpersonal would be communication in between two or more people. Interpersonal is occurring between two different points. So some examples of this would be conversation, verbal conversation, nonverbal communication between other people. If you are directly texting or in the DMs of somebody, those are communications between two people. This can be emails, letters, things like that are examples of interpersonal communication. Social communication. Now, social communication would be between an individual and a group. Any group being defined as a common trait between them. Now, that can be any kind of wide range of criteria. Some examples of which would be like somebody making an online video to their audience. The audience would have the criteria in common of all following this particular person, all tuning in to listen to see what they have to say, all fans of a particular celebrity, and the individual would be speaking directly to the intended audience. Now, this can also look like a classroom where there would be a singular teacher, the educator, and the students, the ones there to learn, educating and learning, two other methods of the speaking and the listening components of communication. This also goes the other way of group approval and disapproval. If everybody enjoys something someone does, you hit the thumbs up, you start sharing it, you give your praise for it. There's also disapproval. If somebody's misdeeds deserve attention, deserve reciprocity, deserve to be made public, that also is a large component of society and a lot of our social functions as well. This also can turn some interpersonal communications that we were talking about into a social communication. If private conversations are then made public, you now have this social communication between two people that is being observed by the audience at large for social communications. Intercultural communication. Now, intercultural would be between two groups. Again, a group defined as having any set common criteria. This can be sports fans. This can be groups of sexuality. This can be ethnic groups. This can be religious groups. This can be Swifties, fans of a particular thing. Any kind of criteria that a group of people have in common would define a group. Now, some examples of this would be like cultural assimilation. You start picking up the habits of the group you are around, where you start having the same thoughts, beliefs, patterns, attitudes, and values of those around you when you are in an environment that you might not have always been. You might also share languages. Pidgin languages are like Spanglish. Pidgin languages are languages bridging in between two spoken languages for the facilitation of commerce. Ports of trade often will pick up just enough of the other's language to get across numbers, to get across timing and dates, things like that, to be able to build successful communication, even though it may not be a formal language. Gym culture. When you go to a different gym, they may have different habits, different rules, a different schedule. Yes cameras, no cameras. Work culture as well is a big thing. The work culture that one has may change from environment to environment, from industry to industry, even from company to company, where the culture, the habits, the schedules, and the thoughts, attitudes of everyone around you could be radically different simply based on that group. Mass communication would be any kind of mass media. Now, this is communicating between a group and an institution. Let's define institution. An institution would be something that is left behind even if all of the personal elements of it have gone. Either they have died or they have moved away, they have renounced the institution itself. The institution will still be there. The building will still be there. Even though popes may come and go, the Catholic Church will still be there. Even though people may convert or convert away from Catholicism, the Catholic Church will still be there. Now, this can be communicating between groups like a weather alert, communicating between the institution, a local news channel, and the citizens of a given area where weather alerts may impact them. Public health announcements between a state body and a group of the citizens can be considered a mass media communication, an announcement. Laws that are passed, laws that are voted in are examples of this speaking and listening, where the group as well can start changing the institutional values by voting in laws, voting out members of the institutional body, even all the way up to revolutions when we want to do away with the old institution and institute a new one. Now, institutional communication. This is communication in between two institutions, two bodies that are larger than a group of people, but institutions that would last outside of the groups of people, generally having more influence and have been around, will be around for a much longer period of time. Some examples of this can be between states and nations, agreeing to trades, tariffs, alliances. There can also be summits. There were many countries that all participate in particular summits with a particular goal to have this institutional communication between differing institutions, the states and nations that participate in such things, and common goals. Another example of extreme disagreeing, another example of extremely acrimonious communication between institutions would be a declaration of war. Now, using and seeing all of these different modalities of communicating between different groups, different institutions, between individuals, even within the self, we can start to see how they apply to our daily lives. Which ones do we see on a regular basis? Which ones do we participate in on a regular basis? Do you communicate with yourself very much? Do you communicate with yourself maybe not at all? Do you have a media diet, a media consumption that involves a lot of institutional communication or social communications? Do you keep more interpersonal relationships and communications between individuals, your own friends, your family, even enemies online if you like to pick fights? Things like that are all interpersonal communications. And hopefully these examples as well give you some illumination onto how we can do the speaking and the listening portion of all of these different modalities of communication, from the smallest all the way to the largest of scales.